ESPN.com senior NFL insider KC Joyner here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline as we look back at the Eagles' dominating performance over the New York Football Giants. And everybody wants to know, KC, have the Eagles turned the corner? Did you see good signs, or are the Giants just that bad?
I think it's a little bit of both. There were good signs in that the Eagles got back to the type of Eagle football they played last year, but the Giants are bad in a lot of ways. And I think that when you play a team with that many problems, I think it'll allow you to get back to last year's football. But it's good to see the Eagles get back to last year's football because for the first 5 weeks you kind of wondered if they were going to do that.
Let's take a look at some of the things the Eagles did last night. And Carson Wentz, obviously, it's his third week back. How much has he progressed since the first week he played?
I think that they're trusting him more. I think in the beginning they didn't want to make this a really Carson-centric offense. But last night he only had to throw 10 vertical passes. That's not a lot of vertical passes. It's a solid number, but it's not a lot. He completes 5 out of 10. He gets 134 yards on those passes, though. That's 13.4 yards per attempt. That's an insanely good number. So when they asked him to go vertical, he went vertical. And he spread it around, too. Of the 5 receptions, 2 go to Aguilar, one goes to Jeffrey, 1 goes to Matthews, 1 goes to Ertz. So he didn't just go through one player. He's able to get vertical passes across the board. So that's a really big plus.
You look at the Eagles' run game. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it looks balanced, but they really ran a little bit later on in the game. They didn't really have that breakout performance. There's been so much talk about, do they need to add a running back? When you saw their run game last night, do you think they still need to get a running back?
I'd like to see him get some home run threat, somebody who can hit longer gains than what they were getting, because they only gained 1.7 yards before 1.7 yards per carry before first defensive contact and 1.8 after. Neither of those are particularly good numbers. I'd like to see them get somebody there. If they could get a LaShawn McCoy, if he's got some spring left in his step, that'd be nice. But you don't want to overpay for the position because the running game still comes down to if you're getting good run blocking. They got solid run blocking last night, not as good as I thought. But again, when you're in game situations where you're ahead and you're running the ball, the other team can usually keep you from getting good blocking on a consistent basis because they know what's coming. So I'm still feeling good about the ground game overall.
I know you look at the offensive line play. The Eagles seemingly had some injury issues. Lane Johnson banged up. Jason Peters, bicep problem. What'd you think of the offensive line last night against the Giants?
Wasn't too particularly impressed. There was that one series of plays where I would think Wentz got hit in 3 out of 4 plays. 3 out of 4 plays, and they got a holding penalty on the other play. They only gave up pressure on 28.2% of the plays, but the quarterback was contacted 19% of plays last night. Quarterback contact rate's too high. You can't have a quarterback getting hit 1 out of 5 times, especially when you're not doing a lot of scrambles and things that are going to lead to that. So I thought there was a lot, but again, they got the situation so they didn't have to do it, so that's a big plus. But if they allow that kind of pass rush pressure the rest of the year, that's going to be a problem.
We didn't get a chance to really look at the matchups in this game, but when you saw the Giants' defensive front against the Eagles' offensive line, where did you think that matchup lied?
I was not particularly – I thought the Eagles would have had a pretty big edge in that area going into that matchup. I had Philadelphia as having – they rank 14th. I do a series of article matchups for ESPN's Plus for fantasy football. You can check it out every Wednesday in the ESPN Plus fantasy football section. And the Eagles rank 14th in the pass blocking edge this week. So I thought they'd be okay there, but I think that they played below where their expectations should have been. This wasn't an overwhelming matchup advantage for them, but they still blocked a little before that. They've got some improvement to make there.
You look at the Eagles secondary and the way they played against Eli Manning and Odell Beckham. Obviously, the Giants are really struggling in the pass game, but is that because they struggle in the pass game, or did you like the Eagles' pressure have a factor in that?
The Eagles' pressure definitely had a factor in it because they got pass rush pressure on the Giants 38.3% of the time. They only hit Eli on 12.2% of his dropbacks, and they didn't get contact in it, but they're getting pressure nearly 4 out of 10 times. That's an extremely good number, and the only blitz, this is the amazing thing, they get a pressure 38.3% of the time, they only blitz 2.1% of the plays. I mean, they were not sending extra players to saying we can do it with our regular rushers, and I think that says more about where the Giants are on their offensive line than it does in the Eagles' pass rush. But of late, we haven't seen the Eagles get a pass rush no matter what they do, so that's a big plus.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles obviously have had their issues with the big play, too. I mean, Jalen Mills has been kind of picked on as a guy, but they didn't really give up. They had the one big play. They kind of tightened that up last night, and the Eagles' defense really tightened things up. When you look at this team now through the 6 games here, You feel that this team is closer to the team from last year, or more concerns like the first 5 weeks?
Mills got beat once in coverage yesterday, and it was Vance only once, but it only takes that when you're playing the Giants. You can get away with that, but the thing is, the Giants, I hesitate to say what I think about the Eagles' passing game pass defense, because yesterday the Giants are behind most of the game, and usually when you get in that situation, the team's going to throw the ball out and they're going to throw the ball vertical. The Giants, as much as they were behind yesterday, Eli only tries 9 vertical passes. Now, only completes 2 for 63 yards, 7 yards per attempt. It's a terrible number. It's just they shut down the vertical game. But I think that says more about what Eli and that pass blocking is than it does about the Eagles' secondary. So I like what I saw, but at the same time, you got to take into account the opponent.
Yeah, we were kind of debating this before you jumped on last hour, Casey, in that, are they not doing it because Shermer knows that he doesn't have the right guy to do it? Or, when you look at why the Giants and Eli Manning don't take more shots down the field, is it because Shermer understands what he's got?
I still think even no matter who you have, you've got to throw more than 2 vertical passes to Odell Beckham. 2. They threw 9 vertical passes last night, 2 to Beckham, 2 to Shepard, 2 to Jewel Davis, 2 to Cody Latimer, 1 to Scott Simonson. You have to throw more vertical passes than that to begin with because you're behind. The second off, I don't care. Get Odell in one-on-one situations. You can find ways to do it. Even if you've got help over the top, fine. Throw 9 stop routes where you go downfield, run 15, 20 yards, and stop and come back, or do something. There's other ways to get the vertical game involved. It's not just go routes where you can get the safety help. You can do things to beat those towards the coverages, and to see them not do that makes me think they don't trust Eli.
All right, the Eagles win 34-13 as just a dominating effort. And you look the one thing was when the Eagles played a bad team last year, for the most part, Casey, they had games like this where they just beat you and the game wasn't really even close. So that was a really good sign. We'll see if they can carry it moving forward. The big thing I thought was, too, sloppy play. They kind of wiped out the penalties and the drops and the mental mistakes. That was what was a big thing that was missing from last night's game.
One of the things you can tell under the cover of football history is that dominant teams don't win games. And people talk about, how a team plays in close games. That's not how you tell if a team is a really good, great team. You'll find that dominant teams tend to destroy weak opponents. Last night, the Eagles had a weak opponent, and because they got rid of those mental errors and because they were playing a better brand of football, that's why you win by 21, because you can do that. So it is a really good sign that maybe it just took some of the rust of the first few weeks to shake the Eagles back into what they could be. But if they keep going like this, I have a feeling we're talking about a playoff contender. I don't know the prime Super Bowl contender. Now we're talking a top 10 team again.
Yep, we'll see if they can. It was certainly a step in the right direction. So clean win last night. They win convincingly over the Giants, 34-13. Eagles improved to 3-3, and they'll have 10 days to get ready for the Carolina Panthers. They are next on the list. We'll see what the Panthers have coming up for them a little bit after we go down the schedule here with KC Joyner here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Before we get there, one last thing on this Eagles thing. Jeffrey and Aguilar had a couple of big plays. Now, they were kind of crazy plays. You had the one ball that got tipped in the air, and he came down with it. Then you had the play where he was seemingly standing out there by himself. But it seemed that the offense had a little bit more of a big play effect to it last night.
It did, and they were willing and wanting to go downfield and wanting to get I think game flow kept them from being even more aggressive. Once you get ahead as early as they did, it's a matter of, okay, now we don't have to be aggressive and make those big plays downfield. And yet you still saw some aggressive elements in their game plan. Really like to see that, because I much as I think the Eagles in some ways need to get to the running game and try and win those sorts of slugfest games, need to be able to do that with kind of against Tennessee. I think if you can start dictating big play pace to other teams, that's what was really good last year, and they're starting to do that more this year. Again, they're spreading the ball around on vertical passes as much as they did. It tells me that their passing game is getting some. By the way, the Giants come into this game. They were first, using a fantasy football reference here, they were first in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers coming into this ball game. So they were doing very well against wide receivers, and the Eagles still found a way to get all their receivers involved.
All right, let's take a look at what's happening in the league. Week number 6, we go around the NFL with KC Joyner right now on the Sports Bash Live. He's on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Tampa's at Atlanta. Atlanta's really struggling. Tampa was kind of the talk of the town. Then they had their bye. They're going to make a quarterback change back to Jameis Winston here. Can Tampa get back to their winning ways at Atlanta, who can't stop anybody right now?
One of the things that stood out for Ryan Fitzpatrick when he was under center was that he was hitting big plays while not making a lot of forced passes. He wasn't making bad decisions. He wasn't making errors that led to turnover opportunities. Winston's a guy who his entire history, going all the way back to Florida State, he always forces passes in the coverage. I think if he does that in this contest, what I expect that he'll do, he's going to make a couple of interceptions that Matt Ryan won't in the Falcons win because of that.
Interesting game. I know last week you said you have Cincinnati in your top 5. Pittsburgh on the road. They finally had a big breakout, 41 points last week. Can they go on the road and beat the Bengals?
I think they can because they're playing Steelers football again. I think they were starting to make it a Ben-centric offense, which Roethlisberger would probably like to do, but it's a really bad idea because that's not the way their team is built. And I think last week we got back to we're running the football and throwing vertical off of that. I think they're going to keep doing that, and I think it's going to be enough to get them more big plays in Cincinnati, and they win.
Browns at home got an ugly win last week. Chargers have to travel halfway across the country from L.A. to Cleveland as the Browns look to make it 2 in a row. Do the Browns have it in them?
I don't know that they do because I still don't trust their blocking. They ranked 29th in the blocking matchup metrics this week. They're 32nd my overall blocking grades. They do some things well on occasion, but there's so many places where they don't do it well. And the Chargers are 7th in blocking in front of their offense, and they're doing better on defense, too. So I think when you can win the line of scrimmage like that, I think it gives the Chargers the edge.
All right, Seahawks heading to Oakland. Oakland seems to be a dumpster fire at this point. Nothing going right for them. Seahawks played toe-to-toe with the Rams last week, but they are typically not a good road team.
Seahawks are just finding a way. They're the most stubborn team in the league in the sense that they will stick to the running game no matter what. They're not having Russell Wilson run the ball very often. In fact, if they're doing read-option plays on the defense, I'm not even thinking about Wilson running the football at this point because I want to force them to have to do that. But it's working for them. And they've got the two-headed backfield now of Carson and Davis. They don't have to use Rashad Penny. That alone against Oakland's terrible rush defense will be enough to get them to win.
All right, KC Joyner looking through Week 6 right here. This one's fun. Chicago going to Miami. Bears could get to 4-1. Miami was in that position. They've now lost 2 straight. Is home cooking just what the Dolphins ordered?
When you look at those records, Miami, you say, okay, they're both pretty good teams. Miami's not for real. There's so many metrics where they do badly. They're not good in pass block, and they're not good in run block, and their defense is good in some ways, but there's a lot of weaknesses. Chicago, by far, has the best run defense in the league right now. Their blocking is pretty good, and you could start seeing some big plays last time around when Trubisky threw those 6 touchdown passes. So I think Chicago wins it handily.
All right, Arizona on the road. Minnesota, I don't know if they got right last week. They beat the Eagles on the road. They lost at home to Buffalo a couple of weeks ago. Arizona is on that Buffalo level. So can the Vikings lose again at home to an inferior opponent?
I Josh Rosen has done so much for Arizona, but that offense is still very limited. They block okay, but they're not great blocking. And they just don't have any targets. Christian Kirk caught the one big pass last week and then did nothing the rest of the game. Fitz is hurt. They just don't have enough weapons. And Minnesota has so many weapons on offense, and their defense took a step up. I still think they're back, not where they need to be, but I don't think Arizona can get any pass game going against them. I think Minnesota wins handily.
Indy heading to the Jets, and they'll face Sam Darnold and the Jets here, who had a nice win at home last week against Denver. So the Colts, who fought the Eagles pretty tough, but haven't fought much the rest of the way. They're 1-4. Could they lose in New York?
Indianapolis, they were so banged up against the Patriots that they had more injured players than they had inactive slots. They literally had to take injured players and put them on the did not play list instead of the inactive list. And most of those were in the secondary. They've got the same secondary injury question marks coming into this game. I think Darnold's going to be able to have a good game. And even if Crowell misses the game, the Jets have been very consistent in run blocking this year. I think they win that pretty handily.
Carolina had a 63-yard field goal at home last week to beat the Giants. They'll get another NFC opponent this week and then again next week when they take on the Redskins. Is Carolina good enough on the road to beat the Washington Redskins, who struggled last week in New Orleans?
Carolina's got the best run blocking in the league right now. In fact, they've got the 6th best overall blocking. They've got the best run blocking in the league right now. I mean, they're better than the Rams. They're doing that well. That's one of the reasons they've been able to lean on McCaffrey for as many carries as they have. And I think that's the kind of edge against the Washington defense that I don't think is going to be able to stop the run. And Washington's run blocking isn't better, but Peterson's banged up. They're not getting big plays in the passing game, and their receiving core's banged up too. Washington's is. So Carolina wins that one.
All right, Buffalo, can't get a read on them. How's that team 2-3? They're going to Houston, who's now 2-3 because they've won 2 in a row. Are the Texans ready to make it 3 straight?
Buffalo, again, you're right. It's hard to get a read on them. They're very good. They're actually a good defense. I'm going to say very good defense. They're an above-average defense. That defense, you could put that onto a lot of good offenses, and it would make for a playoff caliber team. Their offense is just so bad, but Houston's run defense is really strong. Houston's pass rush has been good. Houston doesn't block well on offense when you get as many weapons as they do, and they even got Alfred Blue now stepping up as a big play player. I think they've got more than enough weapons to beat Buffalo.
All right, let's go to Denver, who lost in – this one's interesting. Denver lost in New York last week. Now they play L.A. at home. The way the NFL goes, I wouldn't be shocked if you're at the end of the day we're saying, how did Denver knock off the Rams? Is this kind of a trap situation for L.A., who's been, just blowing through the league at Denver? Tough place to play?
It could be a trap situation. I mean, Denver, their overall blocking is the best in the league. And after Denver gave up the first 200-yard rushing game to a running back last week of the season, that says that Denver's rush defense is bad. But they were doing really well before that, so they could slow down the run. Los Angeles is getting its receivers back. It looks like Cooks and Kupp are both going to play. Plus, they've got Woods. They've got enough big play players. But, yeah, you go into Denver, it might be bad weather, too. And you add those elements together, wouldn't be shocked to see the Rams lose. But the number one team in the NFL right now is still going to pick them.
Dallas at home, heartbreaking loss. Jacksonville hasn't played all that well. They got bombed last week on the road. They got to go back on the road. Dallas not typically a tough place to play. So the Cowboys have it in them to beat this Jacksonville defense.
I think they have it in them. I think it's going to be a real close game, probably decided by a field goal, because Dallas has a rush defense that could slow down the Jaguars' rushing attack. Because Fournette won't play this week. They've got Yeldon. Even their running back core is so banged up, they had to sign Jamal Charles to a contract. I mean, that's their backup running back right now. So that says that Jacksonville could have some problems there. But Jacksonville still has more big play potential than the receivers, and I think that they still have a secondary that's so strong that they can make into Dallas more one-dimensional than even they're comfortable with. So I'd pick Jacksonville on that one.
All right, let's take a look at Baltimore, Tennessee. I like this game. Fist fight. Put them in a back alley and let them brawl. Tennessee is very good at home. Baltimore, ugly loss on the road. So are we looking at a Baltimore team that's ready to drop 2 straight?
Yeah, I love that. I agree with you. Baltimore, Tennessee, just that kind of a slugfest. It's like they had that back in the, I think it was late 1990s, early 2000s. They had a rivalry of that nature where they were just going to smash my two. When Tennessee was down in Houston, or when they were Tennessee was and things, and that's what this game's going to be. Old school NFL, really like it. But if you're going to smash mouth and slugfest, I think that Baltimore. I think I'm going to pick Tennessee in that game because they're at home and get to take that advantage there. And Baltimore is a little bit banged up.
Sunday night, fun one, Kansas City, New England. A lot of stories here. Kansas City, perfect. New England is kind of, off to the slow start. They finally got it right. They're at home Sunday night. Can I really pick against Brady in this situation? Although the Chiefs have been in this spot against New England before in the opener last year and bombed the Patriots.
Teams have figured out Mahomes how to get him to go to plan B. That you've seen that last couple of weeks, the team's been able to get him to do that. But when he does that, he starts to scramble, and then he's got his plan B that works. So I think Belichick's going to find a way to take away the things that he's doing well, and he's also going to find a way to probably shut down some of the scrambling up plays, do something to counteract that. I think between those two, it's going to give New England enough of an edge, because Kansas City's defense is so bad that if they get into that kind of a shootout game and Belichick can do anything to slow Mahomes down, New England wins. So I'm taking the Patriots.
Chiefs are at, San Francisco's at Green Bay on Monday night. The Packers, they've been up and down too. They lose at Washington. They shut out Buffalo. You can't get a read on some of these teams. They have a tie this year, but San Francisco should be just what the doctor ordered.
Should be, but San Francisco has some of the best run blocking in the league. And C.J. Beathard, he was only 2 yards away from 2 weeks ago from having back-to-back 300-yard passing games. So he's actually been able to hit some passing plays. They've got the best play caller in the league. But Green Bay's at home. Green Bay's got Rodgers, and Rodgers, what he did last week, being able to throw for as many yards and touchdowns as he did on a hobbled knee and having backup wide receivers across the board, it's something when he gets in the Hall of Fame, they need to show a couple clips from that game because that's how good that was. I'd take Rodgers 7 days a week.
All right, there's your Week 6 matchups here, and of course you can listen to Jacksonville, Dallas on 97.3 ESPN, Kansas City, New England on 97.3, and the Monday night matchup between San Francisco and Green Bay. KC Joyner will be back on Monday's show to recap all of these games right here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Enjoy the games this weekend, pal.
You too, man. Appreciate it.